Well, good morning, oblique afternoon, oblique evening, oblique night to everyone here. My name is Sandra Bond. I am here to keep this rabble in order. And
Thank you.
The members of this rabble are four people, all of whom played a very large part in the area of fandom that was known at the time as Gannetfandom, and indeed in British fandom as a whole. And in alphabetical order, they are Harry Bell, Rob Jackson, Ian Maule, and Kevin Williams. Hello there, all four of you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello there.
All right. Do any of you want to say anything to begin with before I plunge into the topic at hand?
Absolutely not.
Plunge, you get started.
Okay, well, we're here to talk about, as I said, Gannetfandom. And if you're wondering why it was called Gannetfandom, keep hanging around and you will soon find out. But the TLDR version is that Gannetfandom was the nickname of fandom in Newcastle upon Tyne and surrounding regions from about 1970, through to the next 10 years or more in British fandom. And the obvious way to approach this, I think, and since I'm the administrator, I get to impose this on them, is to start with the, chronologically at the beginning and work our way forwards. Now, before Gannetfandom, there was a certain amount of activity going on in around the Newcastle and Geordie area, but not a great deal that really created much of a splash. There was a local group in the 1950s and a fanzine called Gestalt, which they ran, and there were various people in the 50s and 60s, several of whom after the Gannets came to prominence, who you actually all met later. There's a few names there that we could mention are Don Allen, who was quite a good cartoonist of the 1950s, and Alan Burns, who was a slightly peculiar character from around the same time. And there was even a man called Ron Holmes, who was a fan in the 1940s, who I believe the Gannets made contact with.
Yep, that's right.
In the 1970s, but rather than distract by going into great detail about any of those now, I think why don't we sort of press the fast forward button and zoom forward to the middle of the 1960s, and of the panel here, the first of them to find fandom was Harry Bell.
Me.
Now, so Harry, I understand that you were brought into fandom by John Barfoot.
Yeah, I started a new job at the Ministry of Pensions in Newcastle in 1964, and John Barfoot started about a month later, and we just happened to start talking to each other and realized we were both science fiction fans. Around that time, John had joined the British Science Fiction Association and was about to produce his first fanzine, Bumbly it was, through Pads. I don't know if you want to cover Pads at all, but at some point, John suggested, when he discovered I did a bit of cartooning at the time, and he asked me for some cartoons. So I did one or two for Bumbly, and I think I did 2 covers. And that was basically it. And then I joined the BSFA because I thought you had to. You had to be in the BSFA to be in fandom.
Yeah, the BSFA to send on you with whips and scorpions if you don't join.
Yeah.
So if this isn't a silly question, obviously you're one of the best known and longest serving fan artists throughout our history. What did you do with your artistic and cartooning talents before fandom?
I did some cartoons when I was at school, but after school, I started to get into painting. So I'd given up cartooning more or less.
Oh.
And it was only because I think John probably showed me some fanzines that had cartoons in them, that I started to do some. But I was doing fine art, my sort of fine art illustration for him as well. I'm not very good, but it wasn't all cartoons.
Mm.
So it was a mixture of things.
All right. And obviously, in more recent times, you've returned to fine art and,
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you went to your first Eastercon in, I think, 66?
66, Yarkon.
Yeah. And, we've already mentioned the BSFA and how you thought it was obligatory to join. Yarkon was the Eastercon where everybody sort of had to sit down and eat at the same time because the hotel included full board, didn't it?
It did, yeah.
Can you imagine that at a convention nowadays? Yeah. And did you also get to see the mods and rockers fighting on Yarmouth seafront? Which is
yeah, a little bit. I would have joined in because I was a mod at the time, but
all right,
it seemed not the right thing to do.
Yeah. All right. And around this same time, I see that Edie has put a link into the chat explaining what that peculiar organisation PADS was. I believe you published your first fanzine for PADS.
I did, yeah. Grimweb. I just followed on with John, really. John didn't last very long. He went off to London, leaving me with two women in a group that he'd formed. He'd gone out with one of them, and I didn't fancy the other one, which seemed to be what he thought. So the three of us sort of struggled on a little bit, and then it just broke up. But I was still interested enough then to start doing a fanzine. Wasn't very good, but it was a fanzine.
Right. And what kind of people were you sending it to around then? Were you sending it to Phil Harbottle and people like that?
Probably not. I think the thing was that it was being published by PADS, which was a publishing and distributing service.
Oh, right.
So they were distributing it.
Oh, so you didn't get to distribute any copies yourself. It all got done for you.
It got done for me. I mean, I had a mailing list, which was basically their mailing list, and I probably added one or two people, but I didn't know anybody then, so I couldn't really add people who would be interested.
So you didn't go to Yarmouth and strike up any sort of lasting friendships with anyone?
I was already friendly with Mary Reid because she was a Geordie originally, and was very keen on making contact with people in the area, even though she was living in Banbury by then. So she was there, and she had a little coterie of friends, and I was part of that at Yarmouth. All
right. So you got that? Was that Tribe X? I think they called themselves.
Basically, yes. Yeah.
And you actually took Mary aboard as co-editor on Grimweb?
No, not Mary. No.
Who was it? Who was it then? Sorry.
It was Mary's friend, Archie Mercer's.
Oh, Beryl Reid.
Beryl Reid.
Beryl Henlius was. Yeah, Beryl Mercer.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, Tribe X was a strange little group in the 1960s. I think, the likes of Greg Pickersgill rather looked down on them a few years later as being sort of rather strange and hippie-ish and having their own little mythologies. But then again, what area of fandom doesn't have its own little mythologies? Okay, so you were up there, ploughing your own furrow for a while and not really sort of, getting very deeply involved with larger fandom. Is that fair?
Fair enough. I went to conventions 66, 67, 68, I mean, went with Jim Marshall, who was one of the older fans in the area. He drove me in the car.
All right.
But
that's the first Jim Marshall, because
yes,
you were blessed with two different Jim Marshalls at different points in the Newcastle fandom.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll move forward a couple of years, and then I'm going to mention for the first time, and certainly not for the last, somebody who we're all very sad is not here to participate with us because he passed away, not too long ago, and that is Ian Williams. He was the Gannetfather. He was nicknamed as Goblin, and I think it's he more than anybody else was responsible for the recrudescence of fandom in sort of Newcastle and Sunderland areas at the start of the 70s. Is that a reasonable remark to make?
It is. He got in touch with me in 1970, having got my contact details again from Mary Reid, and said he was interested in starting a fan group, and would I like to come along? So I went along with my then fiance, and we had the first meeting in September. I don't know what month it was, but it was in 1970 at his granny's house.
Yeah, because Ian.
Yeah, that's me.
Ian Williams, I should say. Ian Williams had been living in London earlier that year and had been to the 1970 Eastercon, which was his first convention, and everybody who'd had any experience of conventions hated it because it was this weird affair run by George Hay in a horrible hotel. And but Ian, it was his first convention. He had nothing to measure it against, and he loved it. He was having the time of his life. So no wonder when he moved out of London and back north, he wanted to try and keep that wave going, and started the meetings. A quick question in the chat there, I see from Jerry Kaufman asking whether this is whether Mary Reid is the one who is still around and writing historical whodunits. Answer: yes, she is. She's now married to Eric Mayer and living in America, but that is the same Mary Reid. Yes. So we've got as far as Ian Williams's granny's front room.
Yes.
Now, most fan groups at the time, I think it's fair to say, were meeting, in rather more, extravagant circumstances than that. How long was it before the Gannets actually moved to a pub?
I can't remember exactly. It must have been only about a month or two.
Yeah,
it must have been at least by October 70, because the first Gannet I ever went to was in the pub itself. Right. That was October 1970.
Yeah, I think it was only a couple of months, and I think that there was a fan called Sam Smith. I don't know if any of you remember him, who dropped out at that point because he didn't want to go to pubs, and was never heard of again. But yes, at this point, thank you, Ian. We shall turn to the second one of you to arrive on the scene, and that is Ian Maule. Hello, Ian Maule.
Hello there.
So, you arrived towards the end of 1970.
October 1970.
What did you find?
I found 4 or 5 people sitting around a table in a pub in Sunderland. A very average pub. It wasn't particularly seedy, and it wasn't particularly anything else. It was just a pub.
Well, I'm going to sort of warn you in advance that there are going to be a bunch of photographs courtesy of Kev Williams, and we do have one of the pub. It may be the fact that it's an old black and white photo, but it really does look extremely gloomy and insalubrious. But we shall see. But this pub was called the Gannet.
Yep, that's right.
This is where the name Gannetfandom actually comes from.
Yeah, because I should point out that the photograph that you'll see, the black and white one, is the outside of the Gannet, and I don't think I ever saw that, because you could actually get into the Gannet from the the concourse on the railway station, which is the entrance I always used.
All right.
So I never actually saw the front of the pub.
So although the pub was in Sunderland, if it was right by the station, it must have been convenient for people to get to from Newcastle and
very
other
easy.
areas.
It was about a 10-second walk from the station to the pub.
There we go. That's of such minor trivialities, is history made.
Are you ready for photos?
Yeah. Should we have a round? We've reached the end of 1970. Shall we have the first round of photographs, folks?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
bring on the photographs. Let's see what we've got. Yeah, there is the Gannet from the other side of the station. You see what I mean about it not looking like anything special.
That's the view that I remember, because I used to drive there.
Ah, there you are.
I used to drive there as well. Yeah,
long since demolished. I understand that pub,
and not soon enough.
Yeah, so
hideous concrete 1960s brutalist concrete shopping centre with a brutalist concrete pub in the basement, and it was as hideous inside as it was out.
So no point making any pilgrimages there then, right?
And no.
And
the beer was crap anyway. As well.
Okay, now who have we got here?
Oh, that's Tynecon. I'd move on. There you go.
That's a very early one. Ian Williams on the left, Terry Welsh in the middle, and
Ian Penman.
Ian Penman on the right.
Yeah.
All right. Ian Penman was, one of the very early Gannets. Terry Welsh doesn't ring any bells for me. Anyone fill me in?
He never went to conventions, never wrote for fanzines, and I think he came to the Gannet for about 6 months or so, and then just disappeared.
But Ian Penman edited 2 quite good comics fanzines at the time, Oracle and Armageddon.
He was also a music journalist.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. He wrote under another name. What was it?
Ian Ravendale.
That's right. Yes, that was
because there was another Ian Penman that wrote for the New Musical Express.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, there was another Penman in the Gannets, who was Tom Penman, who we'll probably come to shortly. And they weren't related any more than the 2 Jim Marshalls were.
Yeah.
And there's Harry on the left, Irene in the centre, and Ian Williams on the right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Oh. That's me duplicating Gannet Scrapbook 1 at Rob Jackson's parents' house. And that's the Gannet again. There's Terry Welsh, Penman, Irene, and Harry again.
Terrific wallpaper.
Yeah.
That's a mad group visit.
That's right. That would be
Lisa
1971, I think.
Yeah. I was going to come into this. I'm going to mention this kind of thing. Yeah, your relationships with other fan groups later on. I mean, I'm guessing that those 3 are Manchester fans. Lisa Canisa,
and
Pete Presford, and Pete.
No,
Colley.
that's me with the glasses.
That's Ian.
Oh, okay, not Pete Presford. I think he's in another one.
Pete Colley, isn't it?
That's definitely Pete Colley on the right.
Yes, Pete Colley, who was out of fandom for years, and then one day in the 1980s got aboard a train and found himself sitting opposite somebody reading a copy of Vector, who was turned out to be Eve Harvey, and got back into contact with fandom that way. All right. And here we are on, is that the first issue of, no, second issue of May?
That's the second issue, yeah.
Why don't we pause with the photographs here, because we haven't yet mentioned Mayer, and I think Mayer is one of the, most important things that came out of Gannetfandom. Obviously, it was a fanzine, as you could just see there. And it saw 15 issues throughout the 1970s. And 3 of the main Gannets were editors at different points. And the first 2 were done by Ian Williams, yes?
Correct.
What made Ian give it up and hand over to you, Ian?
That's a very good question. I've been thinking about that. I think Ian basically just got bored.
He had a novel to write.
Yeah.
That's another joke.
Yeah, there was a long-running joke in the 1970s about Ian's novel, and in the end, he sort of scotched all those jokes by actually into the 1980s did finally get a novel published.
Right.
But not the one that he made infamous by struggling with for years and years and years, and eventually he got me to co-write it. So the
Man on a Stone Horse, was it, Rob?
Rider on a Stone Horse.
Rider on a Stone Horse.
Rider on a
yes.
Stone Horse, yeah.
Yeah.
But he had the last laugh. You did publish it.
Yep.
No, not Rider on a Stone Horse, did he?
No,
No, the one that was published was called The Lies That Bind.
The Lies
Yes,
That Bind, yeah.
which has nothing to do with Rider on a Stone Horse, I don't think.
No, nothing. No, it's
No.
juvenile, really. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, and issues 3 to 6, Ian took over editing.
Yep. And what I tried to do was to widen the readership by sending more copies to the USA, because I thought at the time that British fandom was getting very insular. So I decided to send it abroad more, to Australia, South Africa, a lot to the USA, and got response. I was quite pleased with it.
Yeah, that was a spot-on thing to do. The other thing you did was improve its production hugely. It was very nicely duplicated when you did it, but there was this sort of classic line from Greg Pickersgill about how badly the first 2 issues were duplicated. Greg said, "Did you have to piss in the ink?"
That's true. That may have contributed to Ian giving it up, I think.
Yes, because Greg being Sarky was, well, a well-known thing. It happened quite a lot.
Yeah, of course, this is the first mention of Greg Pickersgill, but as you were saying, Ian, a lot of British fandom was very insular at the time, and Greg was a fine example of that. He did all these iconoclastic fanzines, and then sent practically none of them abroad.
Correct.
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah. So
the other thing he did for Gannetfandom was give it the name.
Now, at the time, at the start of the 70s, there was a trend for local fan groups in Britain to adopt sort of silly animal mascots.
Yep.
I mean, London fandom, or at least the sort of Greg Pickersgill axis of it, became Rat fandom, because they were sort of speedy-eyed and vicious. I don't know, maybe. And Roy Kettle dubbed you the Gannet fandom because you met in a pub called the Gannet, which seems logical enough. And the name stuck.
Was it Roy? I thought it was Greg. Doesn't matter. It's
it was one of. It was in Fowler. I don't know which one of them it was. And then obviously there were other ones like Aardvark fandom and Kitten fandom and goodness knows what.
Yeah.
And most of those fell away, but the Gannets and the Rats continued throughout most of a lot of the 70s, didn't they?
Yeah, certainly Gannet fandom carried on for a long, long time.
All right, so there we are, Ian Ball. You're editing Mayor. You've also, you've been bitten by the fanzine bug quite hard, evidently, because you were also did some smaller fanzines too around the start of the 70s.
Yes, a couple of little personal zines, and I actually joined a couple of American appers and put little fanzines through them as well.
And there's titles I know are Paranoid, which obviously you later revived when you moved down to Surrey.
Yeah, and
Maule's Well was another name.
A little personal zine, that was Maule's Well, yes.
Yeah. All right, so let's pause there, since we've sort of got you on board with Mayor, and have a look at what else was going on, around the early 1970s up to about 73. I think Rob and Kev, were you around yet? I think you were still waiting.
No, I'm the late boy. I'm late 73. Rob was before me.
I was late 72, so it's about a year's difference.
All right.
I must have sort of got stuck in quite quickly because I'd been a member of the Oxford University SF speculative fiction group with names still well known now, like Dave Langford and Chris Morgan and Alan Scott, who later wrote a fair number of fantasy novels.
Yeah.
Everybody knows Dave and Chris Morgan very well, I think. But OUSFG had some fanzines that had been sent to it as a kind of introduction by, I think, Audrey Walton. And I sort of knew, I sort of read a copy of Fowl and a copy of Turning Worm and things like that. And Turning Worm was a diplomacy. It wasn't actually a diplomacy fanzine, was it, Ian? Or
No, not yet. No.
John Piggott was the editor of that, and he got Ian to duplicate it. And Ian's address was in one of the copies of Turning Worm. And when I finished the first half of my medical training in Newcastle and moved back home to Newcastle. Sorry, the first half of my medical training was in Oxford. Moved back to Newcastle and really felt I missed the social contact that I had with the Oxford SF group. Basically, I wanted more fandom, and would try to get in touch with Ian, and didn't find anybody at the address. But the guy at Directory Inquiries that I spoke to happened to know Ian's father and know that he'd recently moved. This is one of these weird coincidences. But
Yeah, you wouldn't get that out of Directory Inquiries these days, would you?
No, you wouldn't. Definitely not. But the Directory Inquiries guy said, let me look up the recent numbers. And there was a fella called Doug Moore at an address in Forest Hall, which is only about half a mile from where I was living with my parents. And so I got in touch, and well, the rest is history. I sort of immediately.
Yes, I remember the doorbell ringing and me opening the front door, and there was this person there looking very keen, saying, "Are you Ian Moore?" "Yes, I am." "Oh, look, I'm Rob Jackson." "Who are you?"
Yeah.
But it must have been.
And now, all these years later, here you both are.
Sorry?
All these years later, here you both are still. Yeah.
Well,
yes.
absolutely. But I must have been fairly quick at getting my feet under the table because I went to Novacon almost immediately. That was my first con, Novacon 2. And my first Eastercon was Ompacon. And by then, the Gannets had already decided to bid for the next Eastercon after Ompacon. There was a rumor that Bram Stokes was planning to bid for a kind of multimedia all singing all dancing Eastercon, a bit actually like what Eastercons have evolved into now anyway.
Yes.
But well, at that stage, a lot of the sort of traditionalist fans really didn't like the idea of this sort of massive Eastercon with sort of too much emphasis on films and TV and comics and stuff like that. And so they wanted to stick to the original Spanish model, and so did the Gannets, actually. So there were this bunch of neos who surprisingly wanted to be traditionalist. And we put on the bid for Newcastle in 74 and got voted in quite successfully. But because both the Ians were the only other two Gannets at Ompacon, they both got stage fright about the idea of presenting the bid. So I had to do it, even though I'd only been in Gannetfandom for about 4 months or something. But it
All
worked.
right. Okay, well, let's stick a pin in Tynecon just for now. And, going back, to the earliest Gannets, obviously we know about Ian Maule and Ian Williams, and Harry, you got back involved at the same time as that, didn't you?
Yeah.
So, who else was there around at the time? There was Ian Penman, there was Tom Penman.
Richie Smith.
Yep.
Richie Smith.
Smith, who is still going to conventions to this day and has had several novels published.
Yeah. Dave Douglas.
Dave Douglas with two
Mm.
S's, yes.
Yes, who actually went to a convention. You went to ChessmanCon in '72.
Right.
Yes, he was. Yeah. He was sort of the very taciturn one they called Douglas the Silent.
Yes, he was very quiet.
Yes, I remember. There was an article in a fanzine by the late Julia Stone, which she called "What's Wrong with Fandom?" and Dave Douglas drew a little illustration to go with that, saying, "What's wrong with Julia Stone by Fandom?" Yeah. Was Henry Page on there as well?
Yes.
Was he later?
Later.
Yeah.
I
He was
mean,
one of the-
he came after you, Kevin, didn't he?
I'm not sure, Harry. I thought he was already there at
Oh, well,
Beyond the
yeah,
Horizon.
He
No?
might have been. I'm not sure. He was
Mm.
somebody I worked with
Yeah.
in the same office.
But yes,
I invited him along, and he fitted in pretty well.
Yep.
Until he didn't.
Yep.
That's another story.
well, yeah. Tom Penman, like Dave Douglas, went to the '72 Eastercon in Chester and wrote a very long con report. And somehow, I'm not quite sure how, maybe if one of you knows, managed to get Paul Skelton and Brian Robinson to publish it as a fanzine in its own right called King Con.
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah. And speaking of Skell and Robinson, this brings me back to the question of your relationships up there in Newcastle with other fan groups. Now, we have to remember, start of the 70s, no internet, long distance telephone calls were very expensive, and we didn't have sort of modern road systems. Motorways were still, the British motorway network was still very much incomplete. So, other than by fanzines and correspondence, must have been hard for you guys to have really, had much contact with any of the other local groups of the day.
I think that's fair to say, yes.
Yeah, and I don't think there was much of a group in Leeds at the time, so the Manchester group was probably, in geographical terms, the nearest one to you.
It was, yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
Which is
they
why,
visited us, and then later on we visited them.
yeah. And we've already seen one photo of a couple of them at the Gannet. So what would you say your relationships were with other groups, like the Rats down in London or the Birmingham group? Did you have anything at all, or was it all purely, seeing them at conventions or in fanzines?
Mm.
Well, it varied. Ian Williams and I both used to go down to London fairly regularly and stay with Greg and Brosnan, people like that. And we also travelled, as Kevin said, to Manchester a couple of times, I think.
Mm.
There was one kind of group visit where we all went down in a minivan.
I know, I hired it, and why I didn't lose my license, I have no idea. Because we couldn't afford a minibus, far too expensive. So I hired a transit van, and we had this brilliant idea that people couldn't, rather than people rolling around in the back of the transit van, we filled it with deck chairs, beach deck chairs, which were actually a very good idea, unless you were crash, of course, in which case you'd all be dead. But so I don't know, half a dozen people sat in the back in deck chairs, and 3 of us squeezed in the front. And I drove us to Manchester, God help me. And then we drove back with lots of drink inside us. And I remember, Rob, I don't know if you remember this, we saw a sun dog. Do you remember that?
I've forgotten
funny
that.
what you remember.
Mm.
You know, these things where you get this weird, the sun comes through a cloud and it's full of ice crystals, and it creates this like ball
Circular.
light.
Mm.
I'd never seen one before. Yeah, I remember that driving up the M6. Yeah,
Was that
the
from?
M6.
Was that we didn't? I thought we stayed overnight that time.
We did, but when we
We
drove
did.
back the next day, yeah. Anyway, sorry, we're getting ahead of ourselves now. Sorry, Sandra.
No,
Carry
it's
on.
okay. It's okay.
It really was a classic sleeper who was kipping on people's floors and things like that.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Charles Partington, who was, it's not one of the world's most polite people.
Yeah. Well, so and equally, just as it was, you were quite geographically separated from other fan groups, I guess it was a long haul for you to get to conventions.
Yep.
I mean, obviously, Chester's not too bad, but Bristol in '73, that must have been a long drive or train ride.
Train ride for me.
I think I went by train as well.
Yeah. And did that play a part in you thinking, right, next time we're going to hold one so that we can just sort of catch a bus to the convention?
I don't think that ever entered our minds, really.
No, I
I
don't think it was to do with trying to bring it home. No, it was.
Right.
It's more to
it's
do with
purely alternative.
Yeah, alternative. I think that was more it. But I know that by the time of the first Seacon 75 one that the Rats organised in Coventry, at least I was able to borrow my mum's car and drive 5 of us. I can't remember who was there, but I know that I had a carload to go to Coventry and back.
Yeah. Speaking of Chester, Edie has pointed out in the chat that if anyone is curious, either the panel or the audience, there are several audio recordings from yesteryear up on fanac.org, which people can listen to.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So, as I say, that we're getting into about 1973 to 74. You went to OmperCon and successfully, got people to say that you could hold the 74 Eastercon.
Yeah, and then I think one other fairly major event in terms of us recruiting people was actually Beyond This Horizon.
Correct.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Science fiction festival in Sunderland, run by I think the local sort of council, who got sort of libraries and arts people. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's Eddie Jones, isn't it? That cover.
Yeah.
That program book that Kev's got there. That ran for a month. One of the things it did was attract Kev and others to attend various of the meetings where Kev cut things short, became a Gannet, I think.
That's right. It was an amazing coincidence. Well, I come from South Wales, and I got a job. I finished my doctorate, and I got a job in Newcastle. And I'd only ever been to Newcastle once, and that was for the interview for the job. And then I was having second thoughts, and I read the Sunday Times one summer. It must have been in early October, saying that there's this science fiction festival happening in Sunderland. And I thought myself and 2 of my school pals, Neil Jones and Paul Williams, were the only people that ever read science fiction. We didn't know anybody else that read science fiction. And I saw this article in the Sunday Times saying that there was a science fiction festival, and it happened to be in Sunderland, which I looked at a map and I thought, that's near Newcastle. So, and it was when you think about it, it was I don't think it's ever been repeated. A 5-week long science fiction festival. And it was part of the, I've got the bit of paper here, so the Sealfrith Arts Sunderland Wearmouth 1300 Festival. So it was celebrating whatever, how many years is that? How many years was it? Anyway, 900 years of the existence of Sunderland. And there was money available. It must have been from the Arts Council, I guess. I don't know if you guys know. But it ran from October the 31st to November the 25th. And I started my job on October the 15th, the week before it opened. And I went along and I was just blown away. There were people whose books I'd read, like John Brunner, James Blish, Brian Aldiss, Mark Adlard, Bob Shaw. And there they were. They were real people. They existed. And I called my 2 mates back in Swansea and said, this exists. You have to come. So the following weekend, the second weekend of Beyond This Horizon, they drove all the way from Swansea, which is a long way, to Sunderland and joined me for a weekend. Stayed in a local hotel, and I met one guy, very nice guy called Rich Loughton, who was briefly a Gannet, very briefly, a real gentle hippie, long hair, really cool, really gentle guy.
Nice guy.
Neil from the Young Ones.
Yep.
That's right. Yes, Neil from the Young Ones. Exactly. I was trying to think, and he said, these people called fans, and he said, and they're having an event tomorrow night or something. And I went along, and lo and behold, there they were. So Ian Maule here greeted me very friendly, and Harry grunted at me, and Rob said, "Oh, come and join us." And Ian Williams said, "Oh no, not the bloody Williams." And that was my introduction to the Gannets, and that was October the something or other, 1973. And I was just absolutely blown away. I went back as evenings. I went back every weekend. I got some great signatures on my program book. James Blish, John Brunner. Anyway, I thought this was wonderful, wonderful. And so then I learned obviously about the Gannets and meeting at the Gannet. And so I started to go to the Gannet. And because I had a car, what passed for a car, it was a very old Austin A40, which didn't have seat belts and didn't have third gear. But I used to drive Harry and Rob. Did I drive you as well? I must have done. And Annie Mullins, who was rich, ended up marrying Richie Smith. Annie Mullins, and I used to drive us. We used to pile the car up and then drink 7 or 8 pints and drive back. Of course, you do that these days, and you'd be locked up and they'd throw the key away. But so that was my introduction to the Gannets, and it was at the Gannet pub. It's dreadful pub.
Now so in 1973, you were still at the Gannet itself. You hadn't yet fallen out with the rude manager.
That's right.
When did that come?
Oh, it wasn't long after, I don't think, wasn't it? Can you remember what happened, Harry?
I can't remember when, no, but I think after that was when we moved to the Jolfrith Arts Centre.
We briefly met at the Arts Centre itself.
Yeah,
that didn't last long though.
Didn't last long, no.
Yeah, I have the name Imperial Vaults in my notes. Was that later?
No, it didn't.
No,
yes, that's Newcastle.
In Newcastle, yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was the Printer's Pie we went to first, wasn't it?
Yeah, we can all. If anyone really wants to get the timeline straight, it's all in the Gannet family tree, which is one of the photographs that we will probably go flying past you shortly. But yes, I've read Harry's history of the falling out in one of Harry's fanzines. Where basically the landlord decided to be obnoxious and say that he drank more in a night than your whole group drank in a year, which is such obvious rubbish, because this is the home of Newcastle Brown, and as Kev has already pointed out, you were mostly young men and mostly enjoyed your drink, so it must have seemed very unfair.
Yeah, that episode was part of the excerpts I put in Time Capsule, my choice of the best of Harry's writing in
that'll be where I'm remembering reading it from. Yes, that will be where I remember having read about it. Yeah, but the epilogue to that is that not too long afterwards, that obnoxious manager got removed from the Gannet and sent to some remote little village pub in the wilds of Northumberland and serve him right.
I've still got the letter I got back from the Vaux, because I wrote to the chief executive of the Vaux brewery saying how obnoxious this guy was, and he was turning away these customers that drank an awful lot of beer.
Well, I don't think you were the only one. I think I wrote as well.
Yeah,
I think yours.
I think I did as well.
Yes. You mess with fans at your peril. They are literate and they get behind causes.
Yeah.
All right. So, quick ones here, maybe mainly for Harry. In the first half of the 70s, I know the Gannets were behind a few what you might call hoaxes, and the name of Brian Temple has been mentioned once or twice. Can you give us the story behind Brian Temple? You or anyone?
I don't think there's a lot to it, but I got interested in the fact that there'd been hoaxes in fandom before, so I invented Brian Temple, and I obviously couldn't write letters or anything to fanzines using my address, so I asked a woman that I worked with if she would accept letters to her address. Her name was Temple. So I wrote a couple of articles, I think, and sent 1 or 2 letters of comment as Brian Temple, and there were answers, there were letters that went. Edith Temple, I think her name was, and she just handed them over to me at work. And it didn't last very long, but it was interesting.
Yeah. And there was a fanzine called Gannet SF Review, which was credited to Brian Temple. Was that you as well?
That I can't remember who actually. I think that was the remnants of something that Ian Williams had written, and then and abandoned somewhere. So I think we picked it up and issued it under Brian Temple's name without Ian knowing.
And then many years afterwards, Brian Temple was revived when somebody did a fake issue of Dave Langford's new zine Ansible, and you called it Gansible.
Yes, though I can't remember anything at all about that.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, I say I was just curious because I'm not sure that the truth behind Brian Temple has ever been really publicly told.
Right.
For what it was worth, anyway. So now we all know. All right. So
I've got a PS on the on us being kicked out of the Gannet. Harry's piece in the Grimling Boss gave the date as 2nd of March 74.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And we after we went to Sunderland Arts Centre, the next was the Imperial Vaults.
Okay.
Right.
So we're getting towards the start of 74 and onto the verge of Tynecon. Should we have a few more photographs and give everyone a chance to sort of rest their voices and wet their whistles?
Okay.
Should we have 2 or 3 years more photographs until we get up to Tynecon? Does that sound okay?
Okay.
Go for it.
So there's the second cover of Mayor. I think that's by Kevin Cullen.
Yep.
Correct.
Pete Pressford and Richie Smith.
Yeah, I knew there was a photo of Pete Pressford somewhere. He was one of the Manchester fans of the time. And Richie Smith, we've already mentioned.
Oh, look.
Here's Maule well. That's one of Ian Maule's.
Mayor 5, yeah.
Yeah, that nice sort of half cover idea, which I stole many years later for a cough. Yeah, because that green bit is a separate sheet and folds back.
Yeah.
I stole that idea.
I thought it was a good idea at the time.
A long time later, it's a big faff.
Yeah, I used it later as well.
Yeah.
Was I first then? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that a hand-drawn stencil there, Harry Bell?
Yes, it is.
Yes,
with shading, with a shading plate. Yeah.
Oh, Beyond This Horizon.
That's the Eddie Jones art.
I think that's Gannet scrapbook, isn't it?
Oh yes, Gannet scrapbook.
Yes.
We'll come to that afterwards.
73.
What on earth do you want a capital 8 for?
Oh, that's a party at your house, Harry, isn't it?
No,
yeah.
I think it's in Manchester. I think it's Manchester.
No, I think it's in my house.
I think that's Lincoln Street, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I recognise the curtains.
Yeah.
I recognise me cuddling up to Cass Skelton.
Oh, well.
As always. Me with the embarrassing hair in the bottom left-hand corner.
Yep.
And the guy in the white shirt is Josh Rawlins, who was an old pal of mine who came to a couple of things. And Richie Smith, I think, in the corner.
Isn't that Skell on the right? Next to
probably, yeah.
The other side
is Mike Mirror? Is that Mike Mirror at the bottom?
Yeah.
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 The lady on the left is Henry Pyjon's sister.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
That was.
And that's
She was
Ian
more
Williams.
keen than Henry was.
Yes. Ian Williams in the background with Pete Pressford's sister, I think it is.
Oh, is it? All right.
Yeah.
Well, here we have that's obviously is Harry's drawing of the Tynecon committee notice that everyone's drawing is completely detailed and completely recognisable, except that Harry himself is sort of lurking in the middle, looking a bit shamefaced.
I'm drawing it. Drawing.
That's right.
Drawing. That's
Yeah,
me.
Rob's there with his stethoscope on to show that he's a doctor. Yeah.
Yep.
Tynecon.
Right. Shall we pause at this point now that we've reached Tynecon and talk about it some? Because, all right, so Tynecon, we've got obviously Ian Williams, Ian Maule, Rob Jackson, Harry, and your then wife Irene, who were the committee.
Yeah.
And it was held at the Royal Station Hotel.
Royal Station Hotel.
Yep.
And it was the largest Eastercon up to that point in 1974. It was the biggest one there had ever been, despite the fact that it was such a long journey for a lot of people.
That was partly through Science Fiction Monthly.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Which had just come out. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, because I know, Science Fiction Monthly was blamed for having brought down the BSFA by having an influx of new members, though I think that's Rob Hanson's work has subsequently disproved that theory. But by all accounts, everyone from Bob Shaw and Brian Aldiss on down said that Tynecon was a wonderful convention and a good proverbial good time was had by all. Is that a good way of summing it up, folks?
Yes, I don't think I heard anybody say anything bad about Tynecon.
Yeah.
No.
I'd never been to a convention before, and I thought it was absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
Great. Met lots of people. Obviously, I knew these guys by then, and I think they got me operating the slide projector. That was my contribution, but nothing else. Yeah.
Now, Tynecon was somewhat. Rich Code says it's still his favourite convention ever, and when you think how many conventions he's been to since, that's praise indeed. So, bask in your ego, boo guys.
Rich and I met Jim Barker again only about a year ago when we took a bit of time out from the WorldCon in Glasgow. Discovered that Tynecon was the first con for both Rich and Jim, but they'd never met each other before.
Oh my. Well, again, with Tynecon being the size it was, that would probably be a lot easier to miss people than it would have been at a smaller con, because Eastercons up till then had only been under 200 people mainly, and I think you got about 350. Is that right?
I thought it was over 400, but
maybe more then. I don't remember.
Attending members were 400 odd, I thought. Just
okay, 400 then. It was certainly a lot more than previously, and maybe twice the size of some not all that many years before.
Yes.
The program book says 332, but I guess there were walk-ins as well.
But if you look at PR4, the numbers went up rapidly in the last couple of weeks. It was 415 by the time PR4 was published.
Well, again, if Science Fiction Monthly came along and gave you a plug at the opposite moment, not long before it, then that would explain a lot of late registrations.
352, this says.
Well, 352.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it got to 415 eventually.
Yeah.
So
I invited about at least half a dozen, if not more, friends along, and they'd never been to a convention before either.
So 3 of you were on the convention committee. Did you have time to enjoy any of it, or were you too busy running things?
I think I was too busy.
I was too busy as well.
I was running around.
I wasn't too busy. I enjoyed it.
Harry got the right idea, got the right mix.
I wasn't too involved with the organization. I'd only got married in September 73, and I did go to NovaCon the 73. No, I didn't. That's the point. I didn't go to NovaCon 73. No. So I hadn't got back into convention fandom at all until we put on Tynecon.
All right. Had you not been to any of the early 70s Eastercons then?
No.
All right, because you'd started contributing art to fanzines again, but you...
Yeah.
I see.
I started contributing as a result of Ian's sending fanzines to America and getting them in return, because suddenly here were fanzines with some really good cartoonists in them, like, I'm afraid, the late Grant Canfield.
Yeah, who we just lost
Yep.
very recently.
We did.
Yep.
Yeah.
Such a talent.
Yeah.
Yeah, people like
Yeah.
Dan Stefford and
Mm.
well, plenty.
Well, Atom, of course,
Steve
Yeah.
Styles.
was already
Yep.
there, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Rich Code didn't meet him at Tynecon. Did you meet Jim Barker at Tynecon, Harry?
Not that I can recall.
Because
No,
I know you two later became very good friends. But,
Mm.
I remember having long conversations with Jim Barker in the foyer at the Royal Station Hotel.
Mm.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't remember very much about it at all. This is how I know I had a good time.
I remember when Rob and I had to go and retrieve various materials from Ian Williams' house. Do you remember that, Rob? Driving to Ian Williams and retrieving materials so we could
what
carry on
materials
with the
were there?
convention.
I've forgotten.
Ian was supposed to be organising the film programme, but nothing happened.
Ah,
So Rob and I drove off to Sunderland to Ian Williams' house and picked up all the film catalogues he had, brought them back to my place, and then we worked out the film programme instead of Ian.
yeah.
yeah, this being in the days when you couldn't just have a shelf full of VCRs and stick them into a slot and play them, whenever. You had to send off for actual films on reels.
That's right. That's right.
Well,
And
absolutely.
make sure you show them in the right order. Which is one of the many things that Mancon got wrong, of course.
Yes,
Far
indeed.
less just find them on Netflix.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was film projectors were real men in those days. You got people like Bob Tucker doing it. Yeah. Mm.
But your only chance to watch the damn things was to see them at conventions or other special showings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
We showed the Omega Man, the Cat People, Slaughterhouse 5, an Apollo 17 film, and Son of Kong. There you are.
All right. Did you get Gerald Bishop in to show them? He tended to be the.
We always got Gerald Bishop. Yeah.
For some reason, I think I remember
Bishop.
remember Cat People, but anyway.
So and another thing that we have to thank Tynecon for was Bob Shaw,
Mm.
who obviously you had a lot of science fiction professionals, particularly when the Northeast Science Fiction Group started. You got the whole lot of them in to give talks, but I think you always had a especially close relationship with Bob Shaw, didn't you?
He was always quite willing to go to the pub.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But well, yeah, he had that in common with us at the time. But he did develop a sort of special relationship with us, but there were one or two other groups he was really, really fond of.
Well, Bob Shaw was, he was the consummate pro fan. He was, he'd been a fan for a long time before he started writing, and he never thought that he was too good to hang out with fans, which was one of his endearing characteristics. But at Tynecon, he gave the very, very first of his serious scientific talks.
Mm-hmm.
And they, of course, became an absolute tradition in British fandom for many years after that, and a high point of any Eastercon where he gave one.
Yep.
Mm.
So yeah, that's another thing that you can pat yourselves on the back for Tynecon.
Well, it was simply, they evolved from his guest of honor speech, because that's what the need for bad science fiction, which was that speech, evolved. It was his guest of honor speech.
Yeah. Well, again, that's sorry if I didn't make that clear.
Yeah. But the other thing that happened there is it had to be put off by a day because he was held up so much by the combination of a meal at a restaurant, which gave him a really acute dental pain when he chomped down on a piece of lead shot in a pheasant or something that he was eating.
Mm.
You read that doesn't sound very funny like that, but if you read his con report it's in Time Capsule, but it was originally published in both Mayor and one other fanzine, Once Upon a Time, you realize just how brilliantly he he made such anecdotes hilarious. He could do
Well,
it the way
that
not many other
was-
people could.
That was Bob Shaw's long suit. Well, he had several long suits, but one of his long suits, he could sort of take those sort of everyday little annoyances or occurrences and spin them into wonderful articles.
Yep.
So, did
Dave
anything
Cockfield, we say a word on behalf of Dave. Dave Cockfield became a great friend of the Shaws, visited them and stayed with them many times. Very
Yeah.
close friend. Yeah.
right? So, did
Yeah.
anything really go wrong with Tynecon at all, or was it that rare convention where you had no crises, no disasters, you didn't lose money, nothing like that?
Brian Aldis broke a bed.
Oh, that's right.
Oh yeah, yes,
Well-
but by jumping up and down on it, not by having violent sex.
Correct.
He was just having a very merry time at a party. Yeah.
That's right.
In fact, going back to Bob Shaw, when he wrote up his experiences at the con, he said, apparently they had 4 beds broken that night at various parties.
5.
Was it 5?
Yes, it was the first ever 5-bed convention. Is what Bob put it in.
Yeah.
This is summing up of Tynecon.
Mm. All right, so that was Tynecon, and it was a huge success, and it's set a high bar for Eastercons to meet, which, as we know, within a couple of years we'd had the Manchester groups attempt to put one on that sort of signally failed to meet that bar, but for many years afterwards, I think you were remembered as one of the targets which Eastercons felt they ought to be aiming at.